Nice.
5v2.
I can't remember what he said.
So basically, here to discuss the academy system and what happens. I think it's just good to shed light on what goes on behind the scenes. Every person has a different story, and I think it's just good to kind of, especially with maybe different generations and different like levels of club that we've all played at, I think it's good to share our experiences because there's a little bit of a darker side to what happens, and it's difficult to see from people from a very, very young age. We're talking 6-7 year olds all the way up to 21, 22 who are told that you're not good enough for your dream to happen, and I think that's something that then shapes people's lives. Football is not the only thing, even though we believe it is. There's a world outside of football that is open for everyone. So yeah, I think we go to maybe start with Tash.
From a young age, I've loved playing the game. Used to play with my dad in the park. Always wanted to be a footballer, and I had the chance to go on trial at Queen's Park Rangers. But as I got older, I suffered knee injuries. So unfortunately, I was out for 2 years. But because I was highly sought, they kept me on a non-contract. But you know, this is when everyone's getting money for like cars, getting their little wages. And I finally made my comeback. Went to a training session, but then again, another setback. And then they asked if they could see me in the boardroom. And I don't know if it was the relationship I had with them, but they didn't tell me I got released. They just said you need to take a break from football. My dad spoke to one of our coaches. He told me that I've been released. So the person I'm wanting to make proud and doing this for him, my family, he's the one that told me that I'm not going to be a player at QPR anymore. So that was a big setback mentally. Football was my plan A, and my grandma always used to say, have a plan B. But in my mind, I don't know if it was immaturity or just naivety, I didn't want a plan B because it deviated from plan A. Football, that was it. So as I'm getting older, I've joined some non-league teams just to get the fun back. And then one game, horrific tackle on me, and I got injured again. And then as the years gone on, I'm still playing, but just not where I want to be. And then I done a podcast with my friend, just to talk about the ups and downs of trying to make it into football. And that kind of made me open my eyes, because I've had a lot of inner thoughts, but to say it out loud was a different story. And that made me realize that I was suffering from depression.
How long was that podcast after you got released?
So I was 18 when I got released. The podcast, I was 30. Yeah.
So why do you think you did hold it in?
It was kind of embarrassing because in my area, I was known as Tash footballer.
What I experienced in my neighbourhood and my community, I had a label on me that was the Liverpool Academy player. I was the one that, I was the good footballer. When people see me and like kids see me, it was like, and in school, he's at Liverpool Academy, he's at Liverpool Academy. Like teachers would say in that, like he's a little bit more special than the rest.
Yeah.
So then if that's ragged off, it
was almost the first question you'd get asked for years is, how's football?
It
wasn't, how are you? How are you as a person? It was, how's football going? How's football going? And I would just say, it's fine, even though I hadn't been at a club for a period of time,
Just an important thing there. If you had your time again, would you do anything different from a personal point of view in terms of that journey that you went on? Would you? So a young boy who's listening to your story, or young boys and girls who've got the same dream as you, same area, for example, what would your advice be to them?
Just open up, speak, because I had a lot of inner demons. So because I feel like I failed the mission, I deem myself as a failure. So now I have a fear of failure.
It's affected your confidence and your belief. For example, as a manager, I see in the academy now they have like psychologists, they have social services, people who can help you. So they encourage you to speak one-to-one. You know, it's not just about the football, it's about your lifestyle, how you're feeling. Do you think the game back in your day or in our day failed us because it might have been a financial thing, but we never had someone to open up to or to speak to. It'd either be go home and speak to your family and your friends, or there was no one really at the club because your coach was your coach.
I think it would have helped, especially my, not even football development, just my personal development, because there was a stage, 29, 30, where I was suicidal, but opening up to my family and my friends helped me get through that.
How do you think you changed the culture though? 'Cause certainly for me, any sign of weakness during those years where you're trying to get a pro contract is almost seen as like you're not up to it, you're not mentally up to it, and any sort of deviation from the plan, like I left my A-levels to sign at a club, so education was going to be my route, and that's taken out, and there wasn't the option to change. How do you change it so it's more rounded?
I felt, because I was lucky enough, I did have that in place, but I always felt like whatever I was to say to would get back to the manager. And it was like, if I say the wrong thing, if I say like, I'm finding it tough, I'm finding the load of school and training hard, is the manager then going to be told, is he going to think I'm tired, I'm too tired, I need a rest? So I always felt like, if I just keep it to myself, then at least I know I'm going to be able to play on the weekend, and that was all that mattered to me.
I think you're right in terms that it needs to be mandatory now, that with the funding that there is now, to go, look, we need to be proactive. You think about a kid's journey, all of us from 6, 7 in the academies, or 9 up to 18 who have got released, that's 10 years that you've all invested, dedicated, sacrificed. But when it comes to the club's turn, to then go, we need an after-player care. Finances might not be available, but then, hold on a minute, you've got to dedicate that, because that kid's just give 10 years of his life to this football club.
To try and make the club better.
Under your due diligence, you've got to be there to, whether they're excelling and they're playing well, then great. If they're having injuries, then okay. If they're not doing well, it's all there. But then that little bit after, and clubs are doing it, to be fair. Palace have obviously got a good scheme going on. Southampton have got one, Brighton have got one. There are clubs that are doing it, but it's not really mandatory, I think, from the top that filters down.
Yeah, I think as well, because of the numbers that are involved in it, it's like, we're not talking like a 60-40 split of like players who make it to who don't. We're talking 99%. To me, that is crazy that there isn't a fallback or like a safety net for them.
If you educate people on how many people do not make it or don't get there for different reasons. If you're aware of the numbers on your journey, I think you definitely want to back yourself up or add more strings to your bow for a safety net, because it is staggering, the numbers that fall away or don't get there.
The big thing would be like the age parameters around it. I think there can't be any, because for like someone like you, Tash, who then like realises 10, 12 years after they've stopped football that they need help, then the system should still be able to help them, because they're a cause of that. And I think it can't just be, oh, you're released at 18, okay, you've got a year or two to then use our help, and if you don't back then we don't really care. It's got to be
an aftercare.
It's got to be an aftercare, because psychologically, like as players, we put like in academies, you put your whole life into it. So we're not just talking like a little hobby. We're talking like you dedicate your life from the age of 6, 7 up until the point you're released. So you've got nothing else to fall back on. So there has to be something there.
Football's fun until you're 16, and then once you become full-time, I think that's when it starts emotionally, and that's when you feel like you're close, but you're so far, and that's the hardest step.
It's that perception though, isn't it? Like you're a few metres away from the players you want to get to, the career you want to get. So you're around stuff that makes you ambitious every single day. So I think it's so hard to dial into something other than
I think it's even worse now,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can be at a City or a Chelsea where they've got tons and tons of players. They're earning 3, 4, 5 grand a week, and they think they're already there. Then once that stops, that's again a bigger problem.
Yeah, I just touching on that, I think that's a problem as well, is the fact
Too
that
much too soon.
it's too much, but also these young players are taking on a lot of responsibility. They're getting, cars, maybe renting an apartment or whatever, and then once they're told, look, go elsewhere, and your finances are cut off, you've then got responsibilities. You're then building up debt or something like that. Which
Again, for me, it's about guidance and having the right people with the right skill sets throughout your journey that are giving you the right advice at the right time, how to spend money, how to deal with social media, how to handle setbacks, how to bounce back from injuries, or how to prepare yourself for these setbacks. I don't think there's enough preparation throughout the journey, and it's almost like the crash comes at the end, and it's too big. It's too big of a setback to deal with because the right steps and the right processes haven't been in place. I always make sure that the most important staff member is the players' liaison officer, and his responsibility is not just the 25 in the squad, because he probably already knows everything about them, but he needs to put the right people in from when full-time work happens to make sure we know everything about the kids, because I don't think clubs have got enough in place from them ages for all these situations that we're discussing to help and support and give these kids guidance. That's my own opinion. One of the most important signings for me is that person who I put in there to try and help and support the kids that are coming through.
I think in every club, and again, this moving in that direction, is that aftercare, that department. Now, the bigger clubs with the bigger finances, they can have a whole section, a whole block that will dedicate that to them players, and they can have a 5-year plan.
Because it doesn't matter whether you're on a journey at Plymouth or the thing, the
It's
setbacks
exactly the same,
and the feelings and the emotional ups and downs, highs and lows, they're all the same.
I didn't get a YTS at Reading, didn't get one went and tried at Chelsea, didn't get one there. Ended up playing non-league at 15, 16, scoring a few goals, got a move to Yeovil at the time they were in the league. 2 years there, first as a scholar, then as a pro. Then we find out they closed the 21s online while we were all on holiday. So we didn't even get told the academy was closing.
What was the reason behind that?
They just got promoted to the championship, so they wanted boys in on loan who were ready to play. So we had 4 or 5 of us on 2-year contracts with nowhere to play football. So it was basically, you can stay around, you're not going to play, or go and see what you can get. I went to 8 clubs in a year to try and get something, but it's tough.
So it always feels like you come back sort of full circle, that it needs something bad to happen for clubs to sit up and take notice. Now, whether that's going to be full end of the spectrum where someone's taking their life, the clubs then go, there's a bit of momentum, and then it slowly sort of dips off, or whether it's going to be someone's hit depression, or it feels like there's always got to be a negative before something
comes good.
Us opening up now is giving a license for other people to say, you know what, he said that, I'm feeling this too.
I almost think therapy should be almost compulsory or at least a first point of contact with a therapist. I think it took me 3 years after I stopped playing full time to get support from the PFA to go and get some mental health therapy, but that could be something easy done. You at least get an introduction to someone who, if stuff does get difficult, you might just think. The
majority, it's in place in the background somewhere, but the majority of clubs are just
ticking the box.
Yeah. This is a serious matter now. This needs to be up there with as serious as recruitment.
I think the conversation around the skills you get from football that aren't on the pitch needs to change as well. I think footballers as a whole are often labelled with things that aren't true, like the resilience you need to get through an academy system, even if you never play professionally, but the mental strength you have to get to that level of support, that's so transferable into other industries, not just football. And I think if you change the narrative of what you learn away from the pitch in that environment, you can really use those skills to go into other things that you can find value in.
I think even when you think about it, you strip it back, the fact that you've got 6, 7, 8-year-olds who, when it comes to like April, May time of the year, are like consciously fighting for their job is crazy.
5-year-olds.
It's crazy. Is fighting for a contract at a club is ridiculous.
Leo's age now, Liverpool, he's just started going in now, tried to keep him away from it, but he's ended up going into the academy. There's 35 kids, 5-year-olds, so under 6.
Yeah.
The 35's going to 25 in the next 4 weeks. How are we telling kids that they're not good enough? It's nuts.
I think we all, like as a dad, and you're the same. You're trying to protect them, and ideally you want to get them in the system later down the line. But if you do
then
that,
they might miss out.
But if you do that, the kids that are in the system and they're getting
They've
contact
got a head
time
start.
4 times a week,
Are they going to
when they go in at that level, they're just going to be, so everyone's getting sucked in, and every club's the same. I think obviously it's just a domino effect where everyone just can't follow suit, whereas it needs maybe a big hitter or someone just to set a precedent and go, this is how we're going to do it. But it's got to be some movement for that to change.
When was the first time you felt the pressure of an academy?
I think now I think back on it, it's like when I was trying to get signed, when you sign at like 9, that's when I was like, I need to impress. I need to, because like that's what I want to do. I want that contract. Even when you get to like year 11, under 16, and they're still undecided, like you're trying to sit your exams, sit your GCSEs, and at the same time, you're worrying about whether you're going to be getting paid next year or not, and like, am I going to be getting a contract next year? That's probably the biggest time for an academy player, is that transition from still the academy, but from school and the innocence to then I'm getting paid and this is my job. And I think that's probably the biggest psychological pressure at the academy.
I actually think there's more pressure now though, because of social media.
Yeah, of course.
You know, the amount of people that know you. You know, back in our day, if you would have got released, it wouldn't have really have been news. But you know, now if one of the kids at Liverpool's academy who's 16, 17's already probably got that expectation that he's going to the first team. If he gets released, it's big news, social media. So I think the pressure's now 50, 60% more than when we was. That's why it's imperative you get an education or another skill set alongside your football to fall back on, and there is aftercare from clubs, because then you know, the crash is not as big, if you like, and there is safety nets there. Because a reset for me would have been probably relying on a relation to start a trade. Now, being in that position where Steven Gerrard, he's going to play for Liverpool, to go from that to a trade at that time would have felt like a big crash.
So I think it's hard when you're in it to even think about your plan B, because you're so focused and you're kind of adamant, and you convince yourself you are going to actually make it. And then, but I just think, from my experience, when I was in the academies and stuff, when someone mentioned plan B, I just thought footy coach. You know, if I don't make it, I've got the knowledge of football, I love it, I'll be a coach.
Don't want to go down that road.
No, but I just thought, no one opened my eyes. No one opened my eyes to the other kind of jobs within football.
Reality.
Well, they're seen as almost seen as a failure, aren't they? Anything else?
It's an ego here.
It took me a long, to consider university. I was honestly, it was like, that was the last resort. I had no other, it was either that or get a job I didn't want to do. It bought me a few more years of extra training, and was playing a decent enough non-league standard. But it does, any other job other than football is perceived and is put out there as a failure, and there's loads of great jobs you can get off after.
But I don't think you have the time or kind of the social life to even know what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, of course. Like, so if we're sitting around a table now, and they was like, right, we've said what we've got to say, what would you suggest in the next steps for when people, or youngsters or whatever age, from 18 to 23 are released? What would you say?
I can only speak on the lower league professional setup, because that's pretty much all I was ever involved in. But the fall off from there is arguably bigger than it is in the Premier League. I think you've got to do other jobs during your time. I think I could have managed a degree and my YTS, or my first year pro, second year pro. I think it's given people a taste of other jobs. Can you go and, if it's a trade, can you go and do a trade for half a day every few weeks just to see if you enjoy it? Or can you go work at a media organisation if that's what you want to do? Can you go work with a coach on your days off just to see what that environment's like?
And I think for a couple of years, if your money stops, for example, there needs to be financial support from the powers that be to help you, you know, at least put you on a path to somewhere?
Yeah, I came through at Yeovil Town, signed there for 4 years. Obviously, they closed the academy programme, ended up going on loan or trial, whichever way you want to call it, to all these clubs. I went to Scotland and ruptured my quads. 18 months out, was still paid for a year of that. So I'm just sat at home, I was drinking more than, I'd never drunk until 2021, and I was being paid not much money, but at the time, from where I came from, it was okay money. So I was drinking.
Why were you drinking?
When I think back to it now, I was trying to maintain. You get a lot of friends when you play footy at an academy, because friends, you get a lot of people who are just around, and at the time, I wanted to maintain that kind of buzz. And looking back now, I got a credit card, did all the stuff to kind of maintain a lifestyle that was perceived I should have, because I'd been. And I achieved nothing. If I look at my career, I achieved nothing. But it was always Liam, the football player, who's at this club doing this. So I chased a lifestyle that I think people assumed I should have for a long time, to the point where I was definitely, if not depressed, close to that stage. Lost is probably more accurate. And then it was just a case of, like, my family were great and said, what about university? Because I'd always been academic, you see. Like, football came to me late. I'd given up on being a pro. And it came to me at 17. The PFA have been great with me. It supported me through a university course. I've had regular therapy that's been funded by them. So I'm always telling lads, like, the support, I think, is there, but you've got to go and get it and ask for it.
No awareness.
But now I'm luckily went to university, did an internship at the BBC, and fortunately now present on Football Focus every week, one of the longest standing. Get to interview this guy every now and then, Stevie early, and I'm around football still every day, interviewing Premier League players, international players, and that's my job now. And I would never have dreamed of that being possible off the back of a very average academy career.
That's a positive story from the PFA though, where they've helped give you that guidance, and I think that should be compulsory.
As much as, you know, the negative side of it, some of it I'm thankful that it's happened, because it's kind of made the man I am today. Like, I'm stronger mentally. I communicate more. I'm there for my friends when they need me. Like, if I went straight, made it at QPR first team, maybe I wouldn't be so, grateful of what I have now. I feel like I had to go through things to kind of realize who my people are, because it's easy for people to be there when you're at the top, but we'll see who's around when things aren't going your way. So going through this, it wasn't an easy road, but I'm kind of thankful it's happened, because it's made me who I am today.
But you see at 18 when you got released by QPR, like, were you aware of the PFA or what they could do?
No, not at the time. I don't know if I wasn't interested, or I think I was a bit immature back then. I just wasn't emotionally available. So I think that's what it might be.
I think that's where people need help, because I think that's a pivotal age. In someone learning what the world is, how the world works. And just just a bit of guidance. Because it's like, because you're so sheltered within football, it's all you know. What else is there?
Clubs have got to take more responsibility.
So obviously we've all spoke about it from a player's perspective, but I just wanted to touch on from a coach's, as someone who's on the inside but possibly making decisions, and what that looks like.
I was coaching at Brighton, under 16s and a bit with the 18s. So the 16s is a hard group. It's a really hard group, that age group, because you can imagine they're in the last year of school, they're going through their GCSEs, and they're all fighting for a scholarship. So you're coming in with a lot of different personalities. I remember one kid, and this was my first year there, we had to release a player that, for me, I thought was going to be nailed on to get a scholar, and he didn't get one because the gamble was the player the year below was going to be better than him, and he was going to basically be in his pathway possibly to the first team. So a lot goes into decisions. The actual decisions in the end was again made via an email, because beforehand, when it was done face to face with the parents, you can imagine the player, the young man at the time, would be sort of tearing up and holding it back, and then the parents would be like getting closer around the table, why? And you're sort of saying, look, there's a time and place for this conversation. So anyway, it was done via an email, and you're trying to say to him, look, your journey in football is going to have ups and downs, and just because it stopped here, it doesn't mean it stopped full time. But they don't want to hear that. They just think it's over.
When you're invested in a kid, you've built that relationship for a couple of years. You'd end up loving them to bits. You want them all to get there.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah.
So it's a tough side of coaching, giving people rejection, but it is part of the role.
Part and parcel. Yeah. I think the biggest thing with that is to really get into players about this stigma of embarrassment. But whereas the majority go, I've let myself down, I'm a failure, I'm embarrassed, I've been here since I was 9 years old, how can I now go and not wear a Liverpool tracksuit and let the family down? Whereas I think if them little
I used
seeds
to
are
still wear mine
planted
to the gym just because I hadn't got over it. It was like, I was still going to put my training kit on.
That's it, that's what I mean.
Just because it was like, I didn't want people to see me out and about and not have that.
You can't obviously be negative the whole time because you want them to be on the front foot, be upbeat, plant the little seed to go, if it does happen, you know, it's hard, but you need to accept it. Yeah. The embarrassment side, the bravery side, you know, the ego side, and then go again. You know, and then there'll always be an opportunity, and if it doesn't happen, then it goes down to then the aftercare of going, right, what else is there? As you say now, the academy players are susceptible to so much, whether it's coaching, nutrition, S&C, they're in the gym at 10 years old, so there's a load of stuff they can do within the football game 100%. And the staff. 100%. But if it's not going to be in that, then okay, what else is there? What else is available?
As a parent, you've experienced it with your lad.
Harry was at Fulham from probably 5 or 6, got released at 11 when he went through his first sort of physical change. He took it hard, so I was prepared to take the back set and just go, listen, let's go enjoy football. He wanted to go on trial straight away. I think more of a bravado and ego thing, been at school, was the main man. So we went on trials to a few clubs. I knew he wasn't ready. He didn't get in, which I thought was perfect at the time, looking back. He played the Sunday League to get his confidence back and just get him enjoying it. And then he got picked up by Wimbledon about a year later, and he's now a first-year scholar. The thing that I'm most impressed with him in that he's my eldest. He knows the system. He's very open. We've got a really open relationship, and he asks me questions all the time.
But it's funny, both of you are success stories, but you both look at the academy system and are like, it's not what you wanted for you. Necessarily look at it with a bit of negativity rather than
academy system's
positive.
It's good, but I think it can be improved in lots of ways. Yeah. That's my opinion on it.
For me, after it happens, I think, like I said earlier, there can't be a time frame on it. I think if you get released from Liverpool at 18, it's not, right, you've got a year window to then come in and try and make something of yourself with us. It's go out, chase your dream, go and chase it, filter down the leagues. When there comes that time, and if and when it does come, where you need that help, or you need support, or you want to venture out and do an apprenticeship, do a placement, get back into education, or then that door's always open. When I think back to my story, I think I put in all that hard work. I worked hard on a daily, I sacrificed everything. But then I think, well, there's 15 of us that done the exact same as me. And what have they got to show for me? They've got nothing. They got nothing back from the academy when they let them go. They just took. You're still involved in football, and I think that's a good story to have, because there's other parts of football that people can get involved in and still be a part of first team football, you know, and around the players and that. So I think your story is a great example of, you know, understanding how football works, understanding the culture of the game, and then applying it into, you know, the media side of things.
I think I always say it's those transferable skills you learn from playing football, being in that environment it's invaluable, really. For me, it was just shifting my perspective and having value as not just a player, but having value in football and being able to give back in a different way. And I think that's the key in football, is just letting people know that you can still have a really big impact, or still be involved in the thing you love most.
Still be a success.
You still be a success using the skills that you've got. And like, I couldn't, honestly, you couldn't tell you, I couldn't believe some of the things I've got to do in the last few years, which I would surpassed anything I would have ever even dreamed of doing on a footy pitch.
Do you go into football clubs? Because you would be a prime example to go into.
I've been
ages from 16 probably onwards.
I have a good relationship with the PFA, and as much as I think those places still need to improve more, for me, whenever I've picked up the phone and gone to them, I've had support, whether it's rehab for an injury, mental health support, education support. They gave me my first job when I was at university to do some trainee journalism. So for me, I've only got good things to say.
Benefits
but
from it.
to being
you
fair,
have to be proactive.
being fair, at no stage did anyone call me offering that service.
Yeah,
but
no,
since I know the Premier League run camps that I've been involved in and are going to continue to do in the off season to try and I think that's the key messaging I think that can change is just the
100%.
value in other industries and
I think it needs people like you to go in, maybe towards that later part of the season when then decision times are coming, just to rejig people's minds to go, look, this is a story of.
Have you thought about the what ifs?
Yeah. And see someone like you go in and it is a successful story. It's refreshing, and I don't think that's done enough. There's a lot of workshop, like we say, that's in place, but to see someone like yourself being there and sitting in front of a group of lads is quite inspiring.
But I definitely think your story is the perfect example of how the system needs to work. I think with the tweaks of maybe someone calling you, reaching out, rather than you having to be proactive, but in terms of the support and what they gave to you and what you needed, that's exactly what I feel is needed for every person who gets released from an academy.
Just think of all the untapped potential, really high potential people who, to be a professional sportsman or close to a professional, that mindset is so unique and so useful in so many other things. It's just like a whole talent pool of people who, if the communication was a bit better and a bit more proactive, could really contribute to a lot of different industries. And I think the biggest thing I've taken into broadcasting, media, telly, whatever you want to call it, being able to take no for an answer, which you get taught so often throughout football. Oh, it's water off a duck's back now. Now I'm past it and I'm over it and I've mentally processed it all. That ability to just have someone have an opinion on you and just brush it off. It's amazing, and that's something that football teaches you and is a life lesson that people have when they do leave an academy system.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you for you guys to coming in and speaking, and I think it's very important, and I think it was good to get different angles and perspectives, and as a parent, as coaches, as players, I think it's been very helpful, and it just sheds light on the problems and solutions as well. So I think with all the hard work that's going on behind the scenes, we'll be able to get some real good solutions going on and start seeing them in place. But yeah, again, thank you for coming and sharing, and hopefully we're able to see big change soon.
Good done. Appreciate it.